overcoming fear and anxiety, gaining confidence, public speaking, better preparation and practice, the power of storytelling. All this and more. Welcome to the High Achievers Club.
Hello and welcome everybody to our special live today, where we will be talking all about public speaking, which is our favourite subject, of one which we have an amazing panel of experts here today to lead us in this discussion. We're going to be public speaking. We're focused today on content and the delivery, the content of your presentations, your speeches, and how we deliver it. That is what we will be focusing on today. So feel free to join in that discussion. We always welcome your contributions. So before we get going, as you say or see, we have an amazing panel. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves to us. I'm going to start with the people. I can see we go Movell, Erno, Rob, Stefan, and Harriet in that order first of all. And then we come to Sharon, who's with us in Clubhouse as well. So let's do a quick intro on who we are and how amazing you are. And as people who introduce us, please take a moment, check out their profiles and give them a follow as well. So Movell, starting with you.
Hey folks, it's your friendly diversity and inclusion consultant and coach. I am what am I today? Today I'm quite tired, as you can tell. I'm a coach and consultant, have been for about 20 years. In terms of public speaking, I speak on matters to do with diversity and inclusion and equity, and love it. Been doing it for many, many years. Think it's fantastic. Enjoy speaking and all of the pitfalls and trials that brings, and also the joy too. And on that note, I will hand over to Arnold, who I think is next.
Yes, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for wherever you are. So my name is Arnold van Buren. I'm also the owner of Learn Global, where we work with media, podcasts, etc. A lot of things, but I'm here to talk about my experience and my journey of public speaking. And believe me, as an IT guy, public speaking was absolutely not on my list. But I've taken the challenge, I've went the journey, and now it's my time to share it with you, but also to learn from others. Over to Rob.
Thank you, Arnold, and great to be here, everyone. I am a passionate lover of public speaking, of life, and leadership. Listen, I am here to help you in any way that I can. Don't worry, this is not going to turn into a therapy session by any stretch of the imagination. However, I do have a wealth of experience in the area of public speaking and professional speaking, being a professional keynote speaker for over 20 years in the area of personal development and leadership transformation. So I'm here to share some tips and strategies, some of my failures, and perhaps some of my successes as well, to help serve you as faithfully as I possibly can. Off to you, Stefan.
Ooh, that was tricky. I had to push 5 different buttons that I don't know if I produce a massive amount of echo right now. As you can tell, I'm wearing, if you watch it live, then you can see that I'm hiding my big ears under those headphones. I'm currently in a recording studio, and that leads to kind of my introduction. I've been a musician, professional musician on stages for a long time, then retired because of old age, and then became a photographer, yet still talking on stages all the time through a lovely little I've been talking for 7 hours today on Clubhouse, so I might be a little bit brain dead, so I'm better hand it over to what direction do I go? Oh my God, that's so difficult. All right, I hand it over to Harriet. Save me.
Wasn't quick enough off the unmute to save you, Stefan, but I've always got your back. You know, for a moment, I wondered what Rob was going to say. I'm a lover of, fill in that gap. It could have been anything, right? Hey, everybody. It's good to be with you again. For those of you who have not connected with, I am Harriet Bratt, currently a traveling speaker. As Willie Nelson would say, I'm on the road again. Blessed and grateful to be traveling around Europe, currently back in the UK for some live events which include supporting individuals to overcome fear, the nerves, anxiety, especially with public speaking, but also in life, those little jittery moments. How do we unleash our warrior within and step into our power to take action that serves us, to communicate with confidence and speak our truth? That is what I love to do. And as always, it is a pleasure to be here with everybody, to contribute where possible, but also to learn from this amazing group of mods. Over to Radio Bill.
Good morning, Ed, and good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Bill Gannon, and I am the owner-founder of the Gannon Group. We focus on communication coaching with companies and individuals. Here's our premise. Technology has made us more efficient communicators, but it most certainly hasn't made us more effective communicators. So my practice is focused entirely there to help better presentation, sales pitches, executive communication, wherever interpersonal communication should be or is taking place, I'm there to help make it better. Love being in this room. It's an honor always to serve, and I'm anxious for today's session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everybody. And let's also hear from Sharon.
Club. Are you following the club? Just in case you're not following the club on Clubhouse, it's that green Monopoly house above Rob Holman's face, his profile picture. So follow the club. And yes, I'm Sharon, the Faith Coach, which is a life and business coach. I focus primarily on the business aspect of things regarding faith-based / Christian women leveling up in their speaking, branding, online business creation, and even writing. Yes, I do that through my speaking club, and I'm always excited about how they are going from one level to the next, to the next, to the next. And who else is going to the next level with us from the High Achievers Club with the wonderful Andy O'Sullivan today? We ask you to join us continuously, ping people in, use the chat feature, and we look forward to the exchange. Back over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Sharon, and everybody who's with us today. So Sharon is joining us live from the audio app, that is Clubhouse. And you can join us there, or if you're on Clubhouse, you can click on that pin link at the top and join us as well, where we are live in LinkedIn, Facebook, and indeed Twitter and YouTube, and many other places as well. And for those of you I'm yet to have the pleasure of meeting, my name is Andy Sullivan. I'm a 5-time best-selling author on books on public speaking, pitching, and presenting. And I've taken that journey of being somebody who's too shy to speak up in meetings, worried what people may think, worried about the judgment that held me back for so many years. And today I have the pleasure of working and helping other professionals to achieve that success as they uncover their confidence to get their voice heard. And getting your voice heard is exactly what we're going to be talking about today when we discover, and we're going to be talking about the content versus delivery. Is content king, or is it the delivery that ultimately decides your fate? We're going to delve in and look at the good content and what is the hallmarks, maybe, of great delivery as well. To lead us through that, we have the one and the only, it's Movell.
If Movell can get her mic off, then we can get started. Okay, cool. So I'm going to take a bit of a poll, and then we're going to have a little bit of fun. So I'm going to ask each one of our wonderful moderators, what do you think is more important, content or delivery? That's all I want from you right now, just one word. Tell me which one you think is more important. So I'll start with Andy.
Oh, I would go with delivery if I had to choose one.
Excellent. Arnold, what are you saying?
Yeah, same. Delivery. Delivery.
Okay. Rob, what do you got?
We got 3 for delivery now. I'm all in with delivery.
Okay. Stefan.
100% delivery. And by the way, Arnold, there's a massive echo coming from you. you.
I like to repeat myself.
I'm going to ignore the two warlords echoing in the room. I'm going to go with Harriet. What are you saying? Oh, Harriet has frozen.
Harriet has, yep.
So we'll come back to Harriet. Bill.
Delivery.
Oh, I heard that delivery.
Oh, that was delivery from Harriet. Excellent.
Oh.
Bill, what about you? You're muted, Bill.
As long as you have the quality content, then delivery has to be the message. People will remember an effective delivery.
I'm not sure what you're saying there, Bill. Are you saying content or the delivery?
Delivery wins.
Delivery wins. Okay. Sharon, over to you.
Delivery.
Wow. So we have a full house for delivery. Okay. I'm just going to ignore that you all said delivery. And what I'm going to do is put you into two separate groups randomly. One of you's going to take content. One of you's going to take delivery. So I'm going to have Bill and Andy and Harriet going with content. Everybody else is going to go with delivery. Now what I want you guys to do is each group is going to start with one person saying why content or delivery is important. The next person is just one sentence. The next person is going to then continue with another sentence as to why it's important. So we'll have 3 sentences, one massive paragraph as to why delivery is important or content is important. We got that? Everyone good? Although we've lost Rob for a minute, so we'll just go without Rob. So we're going to start with content. And we have Harriet, Bill, and Andy. Over to you. Whoever goes first, one sentence. Next person continues that sentence. Next person continues that sentence on why content is important.
So content gives value to our listeners.
You're muted, Bill.
Content gives you great authority on your subject matter.
Can everybody hear me okay?
We got you.
Oh, beautiful. My internet's been a bit in and
out. I think she was going to say. She was going to say in and then out, just went out. So yeah. In and out. Okay, well, there you go. You're back.
I was just saying, great game, Movell. Well played. Having voted delivery, content is super important because people have shown up to give their time. You want to impart some value, some knowledge, benefits for that audience. So it matters that you've taken the time to think.
And we lose her.
To think, and we've lost her.
Yeah, okay.
Make much more of a difference.
Oh, we missed you. We heard you say think, and then you cut out for a second, then you came back with make much more of a difference. Was there something in between there that we lost? Nope, she's frozen again. Okay, so we'll go over to the delivery side. Arnold, Stefan, Sharon, over to you. Why is delivery the most important?
To serve your audience better. Next. We couldn't hear you, Stefan. And I know it was longer than 10 seconds.
He said because a sleeping audience doesn't hear what we're saying. Is that right, Stefan?
100% correct.
Excellent. Sharon, over to you to continue.
Because the style of each speaker resonates differently for each person, and that could be really a great thing.
Excellent. Notice I am not taking part in this game, so you're not going to get my opinion until maybe the end. Now, the reason I did that was, 1, because I want to have a bit of fun, but 2, because I wanted to kind of just demonstrate how our speakers and our panelists here are so wonderful at just picking stuff up on the fly, and they're able to talk about something without having to have too much time to prepare it, because they're experts, right? They're professionals. But they also didn't have any content prepared, and they were still able to deliver that content really well. right? We got a paragraph, notwithstanding some technical difficulties. We got a paragraph from each person, each group, and they were able to deliver that well. So we had both content and delivery. So some may argue that content is more important because without good content, there is nothing to deliver. Some may argue that delivery is important because, as Stefan was alluding to, if our delivery is garbage, then people are not going to engage. They're going to fall asleep, right? So they're not going to hear our content anyway. So this is what we want to just debate today. Which is more important? Content? People say content is king. Is delivery the deciding factor in the fate of your presentation? So we're going to move on to some questions. I'm going to ask you guys a series of questions in terms of what makes content king or what makes delivery the deciding factor. So we'll start with content. Bill, I'm going to ask you, what do you think makes strong content?
I think strong content, first of all, has a core takeaway that has benefit for the audience. If you can walk out of the many, many presentations we've all sat in and remember anything from a presentation that is valuable to you, not that the fact that person spilled water on themselves or that their projector blew up, I don't mean that kind of memory. I mean, if you can walk away a month later, for that matter, a week later from a presentation and remember the one core thing, I think that's what makes great content. Memorability, impact, and clarity.
So when you talk about impact, can the content make an impact on its own? Does delivery really matter then?
Absolutely it can. Absolutely it can. Content can make impact.
Okay. So
even if delivered in a steady monotone, I don't think it's as good as it can be, but I certainly believe it can deliver impact on its own.
Okay, so then that begs the question. If content can make an impact on its own, delivered in a monotone way, why then does delivery matter? And I'm going to ask Andy that question. You're muted, Andy.
If any presentation, any content is delivered well in an engaging way, it's going to land, it's going to have impact on our audience because they're actually going to listen to it. I think if we have some amazing content, but it's delivered poorly, I don't think we won't listen as much. People will pay more interest when they're engaged with you, right? So if we've got the content, it's great content, but it's delivered poorly, the delivery is bad, people are going to switch off. Mentally, they're going to tune off. They're going to go away. Now, they still hear bits of it. It will still have an impact. But if it's delivered in a way that really engages them, really has them involved, really makes people care about the content, then that is when it's going to be more successful. Our presentation will be more successful, and they will have achieved some success for giving up their time. So I think that it is very much we do need the content, but that's why I do think the delivery is so important. So people are with us whilst they're sitting and listening.
I hear that, and that makes perfect sense. So what do we say to people then who say, well, I've got great content and I can't necessarily deliver in the way that I want to because I haven't quite got the skills yet? Should people then not present until the delivery is A-okay, or should they just be like, well, I'm going to give it a go and deliver my content? So that even as Bill was saying, if my content is impactful and I deliver in a monotone way, I'm still able to get out there and practice whilst I'm on stage. Stefan, what's your view on that?
Pushing 500 different buttons, it's not easy. Well, we all have to start somewhere. Nobody is brilliant off the bat. However, I thought about the initial 6 sentences that we had. And funny enough, there's presenters that are incredible on stage. As much as I still stick with my delivery, they're incredible. But if they have nothing to say, well, it becomes a step dance number. So, of course, content is super important. And if you have that content, yes, you should share it. But by doing so, you should be working on your delivery to get closer and closer and closer, because I honestly believe that What connects one person to another is personality. And that comes from my personal style, my way of talking, my way of walking, my way of moving, the way I use my hands, etc., which comes down to the delivery. I assume that whatever we bring on stage has to be content, because otherwise you're a mime. So I take content for granted. But boring delivery, well, it's a good start. We all have to start somewhere. So now we know what we have to work on in our delivery, in our charisma, in our ability to connect to the audience, which then creates that one magic thing, which is called believability.
I love that. And I'm just picking up on what you were saying there, Stefan, about bringing your personality to a presentation. Arnold, how do people do that? How do people bring their themselves and their whole personality and individuality to a presentation?
Yeah, I always say, like, you always be a performer. It doesn't matter what kind of specialist you are. If you're going to be, let's say, doing your presentation, or you have your content, whatever you're going to deliver, you're still a little bit of a performer on stage. And what is also really important is, if you have had a hangover let's say yesterday, and you know that you're gonna, or let's say you had a drink yesterday, and you need to go on stage by today, I will say, like, just don't bother. And the reason why is because when you're going to bring your content, your audience is there to learn from you, and you are there to serve. So I will say, if you, whatever you're going to do, whatever you're going to think, always prepare before you're going to go. Do not have a drink the day before. Understand what you're going to deliver the day that you're going to speak. So again, a lot of preparation, and I can talk hours about this, but what is important is, you're a performer, you be on stage, you have the positive energy that you have to bring to the audience, and that's what's important and what counts.
Okay. So you guys are making really great arguments for delivery, right? Because you're talking about being a performer, bringing yourself to the stage, not being boring. So I want to move back a bit to content, because content is, we can't leave content in the cold, even though none of you voted for content. I just think I'm shaking my head for those on Clubhouse who can't see. I expected at least one person to talk about content, because if we've got no content, then what are we delivering? Sharon, I'm going to ask you, because you're over there on Clubhouse. How do you think you can make your content engaging so that it can stand alone, even if you are starting out and your presentation skills and your delivery isn't the best? How can your content stand out?
Well, Novell, I'm a teacher by trade. I recently stopped teaching and I can tell you this. A teacher, let's take Harriet, the warrior. Yes. If we have a teacher with content being even, as we all have said, right? A teacher like Harriet, with that delivery, would be able to get that content in the pores of those students, and they will score higher, and they will know the relationship of how that content can be applied to their lives, opposed to someone who's very monotone. And even though the information is the same, the delivery lacks quite a bit. So I would go with Novell, having someone, a teacher, a presenter, a speaker like Harriet, with all the emphasis and inflections in her voice and the excitement of her delivery, to really prove the point that yes, content is extremely important. As you said, Novell, without the content, what are we delivering, right? So we need great content. And that is my answer, Novell. Sharon Dunn speaking.
I love, Sharon, the way you say that is my answer. You end in a very authoritative way. So those who want to know how to end the presentation with flair and authority, that's how you do it. Harriet, you were mentioned just now, so I'm going to ask you. You've got a very flamboyant style, and people are going to be really engaged when you're speaking. That's for some people, though, because when we look at our audiences, they're made up of lots of different people. Some people are going to love flamboyance and flair, and some people are going to want monotone. nice, safe, quiet delivery. So how do you think you can make your content appealable? That's not even a word. Appealing. Good Lord, I'm so tired today. Appealing to lots of different types of audiences who want flamboyance, but also want something a bit more quiet.
Beautiful. And I like the word, by the way, appealable. I think let's go with it. Great word. Thank you so much, Sharon, of course, for your kind words. Right back at you, sister. Yes. Very quickly, I'd just like to say, and I know it was in one sentence, and you may well have perhaps used the word because we were sharing it earlier, so I don't want to contradict here, but I just want to say, for me, I think the difference in flamboyant, big energy, and calm still is taking out that word monotone. So I think even as a calm, more reserved, more softly spoken, more gentle individual, I think you can still bring in voice inflection. So even now, this whole time, I'm speaking gently. I'm still able to convey different emotions within the realm of my personality. So I think whoever you are, your personality, show up and be true to that. But everything we speak to, pace, tonality, is relevant no matter whether you're more high energy, love to wave your arms about. I think I just hit myself in the face. or if you're a calmer individual. So I think you can still bring in those inflections and make it more engaging for your audience, no matter what your personality is. And in terms of your content, I think they go hand in hand, right? I absolutely agree. Delivery, but you need the content in order to bring great delivery. How do we get our content to stand alone, to engage the audience whilst we are working on our delivery? Engage, ask questions, research the audience that you're speaking to. Know the individuals sat in those seats, not just one collective group, but the individuals. How do they speak? What do they want to learn? What are they feeling inside of their minds and hearts that by getting on stage, you can address collaboratively, but speaking to each individual? The better you know your audience, the better your content will be. And then to go to your kind of earlier question, it's a case of just mastering that delivery. When I first went on stage, I was a bit of a robot. I was trying to be this professional speaker, and I articulated every word perfectly, and I held myself in a certain way. But that's part of the journey, right? I always share a quote from a previous mentor: master the form, then flow with the formless. Content is a little bit easier to improve because you can go and research and spend that time collecting it. Delivery comes through repetitive action of both practice, but also getting out there and doing it. The more you do the real thing, the more experience you have to know how you're going to show up and feel comfortable and confident in your style. Back to the amazing Marvel.
That's just an amazing answer from the amazing Harriet. I love it. And you've got so many different gems in there. But I'm going to pick up on what you were talking about in terms of body language and projection, especially because you hit yourself in the face. So that kind of made me want to think about it. And this is the things that happen when you're presenting. Sometimes you may gesticulate and hit yourself in the face. And how do you manage that? Rob, I'm going to come to you because you are someone who I respect as someone who understands how to command an audience and how to, command yourself in an audience when you're speaking. So in terms of body language, communication styles, and verbal, non-verbal, what do you think is the best way to communicate so that we're getting people to pay attention to the content, right? Because the content is what they came for. And even though they want the delivery to be great, they came for the content, right? How do we present in a way that allows them to engage with the content so that our delivery style doesn't take over?
Yeah, it's a great point. And don't worry, Harriet, you're not alone. The over-under for me hitting myself in any particular keynote talk is probably five times. So just want to say that for the record.
You're going to have to now explain the sports metaphor of the over-under.
Okay. Hey, listen, I'll cut to the bottom line on this. I end up hitting myself quite a bit. And if not myself, not other people, not the audience, but I will knock the microphone over, the lapel mic, you name it, a number of times in any presentation. That being said, it is important to be true to who you are. You've already mentioned this. You've already talked about this. So your mannerisms, how animated you are, how expressive you are, it should certainly reflect your personality. Some people are a little bit more reserved. Certainly they need to come out of their shell a little bit more, and other people are that much more expressive, and they need to tone it down once in a while as well. But be true to who you are. Be consistent, because the audience is waiting for the real you to stand up and to deliver. Number one. Number two, what we don't want to see happen is our mannerisms, the physical aspects, our posture, our hand gestures. We don't want that to be or to become a distraction, to where it actually takes away from our content and the delivery of that content. So I have found practically, the more that you remain as a default in a neutral position, hands by your side as you're presenting, and then when you're beginning to ramp up a point and say the point, your body language and expression should drive it home. It could be by a look or an expression on your face. It could be by your hands getting all animated. And then when you state the point, let it sit and rest and place your hands back down by your side in a neutral position. Hopefully that helps, Movell. Back to you.
That helps. It's awesome. I love the fact that you always, everyone on this stage right now and in Clubhouse right now, all of these wonderful moderators always bring their own personalities to every time we speak. And I hope that you are hearing that as audience members, right? That this is important. The content we deliver to you guys is obviously very important, but the delivery here from each person is very distinct, but it's very natural. And that's what helps us to keep involved and engaged as audience members. So, I mean, I have to duck out, but I'm going to tell you what I think before I go. So before I go, I actually was quite neutral before I began. I was like, yeah, content is really, really important, but so is delivery. And I wasn't sure where I was going to land. But the wonderful moderators have all convinced me to land on the side of delivery. Yeah. Because it's, and Andy's clapping his hands. You guys can't see on Clubhouse, but Andy is jubilant. I think it's really important, because if we're going to just have boring, monotone content, we can just hand someone a slide deck and an information sheet. The whole point of us being on stage and presenting is that we bring something new and additional to that content, right? So that's why, for me, delivery is the most important thing. So I have to duck out, but the room is not over. And so I'm going to hand over to the wonderful Bill, but I am going to leave Bill with a question that he can take to the rest of you. So the question is, should you ever adapt your content mid-presentation if something takes you off track or someone asks you a question that you know is not going to be covered in your content? And if you do that, how can you do it seamlessly? I'm going to leave you guys right there with that. It's been fantastic. I love you guys. I'm off to do a presentation right now, and I'm going to do it taking on board everything that you guys have said. So see you next time.
Rocket Movell, and thanks
Movell.
Bye,
Thank you, Movell.
See you, Movell.
Well, let's see. If I heard the question right, how do we adjust our presentation on the fly based on content, question, or something we necessarily aren't going to cover in our presentation, but have to decide whether it's time to adapt our presentation? And of course, I'm going to drop a big maybe on this whole answer, because we just simply don't know how diverse the question is to our core content. If it's relatable, if it reinforces a point, and basically if you think it's going to serve the audience better to know the answer, or to, I should say, address the question, then I say you make your pivot and do it. If you find it is out of line with the presentation, if it's not really going to add to the overall, are they going to come away better than they did by knowing this, and you think it's a bit more of an offshoot, it's perfectly acceptable to say, I appreciate that question, and it is slightly out of our realm of today, and I really want to make sure we cover all the core content, but I will be available after, and I'm glad to discuss it with the question asker. I think that's the polite way to do it, and it's also, remember, the smart way to stay connected and responsible for the room that you're to the audience you're speaking to. So that would be my take on that. Andy, I think we're probably swinging back over to you, Master Moderator, to figure out how we want to play out the rest of our time here.
I thought you were going to be running the room for us for the next few minutes or so. But let me just share, I know we've done this on Clubhouse, but to everybody else who's watching us everywhere else on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, I can't lose track of all these wonderful places. This is what I love about the technology. If you have any comments, please feel free to post them below. You're very welcome to join in the discussion by posting those comments, and we will reply to them. Even if you're catching us after the live has finished, we will still reply, or maybe we will address them in our next live, which will be on Thursday as well. And if you're on Clubhouse, again, you're welcome to join in the discussion as well, to come on up and even ask us in person your question or make your contribution as well. You are always very, very welcome to do so. Let me then throw a question out there while we're talking on content and delivery as well, and the difference between them. When it comes to rehearsing, when we're rehearsing our presentations, which I always feel we should do in advance, how much time should we spend on learning the content, rehearsing content, getting ready to internalize that content? And how much then should we spend on actually maybe rehearsing our gestures, rehearsing how we're going to deliver that presentation as well? Should we even rehearse that delivery? Oh no, I'm going to start off with you for your thoughts on when it's rehearsing. What should we be thinking and focusing on? Delivery, content, or both?
Well, I will say focus on both, because in the end of the day, when you're going to deliver, it's always best to focus on more than just one. What I say is it depends in what situation you are. If it's going to be a new presentation, I will say like you can do every day a half an hour, or every day 15 minutes, or whatever time it's possible. However, do not do it like a day before. Just do it like if you really know that you're going to have the presentation in the next 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, or 3, 4, 5, 7 months. Already start with your presentation, preparing. Already know what you're gonna share. Now, I always say it's the same as a little bit as storytelling. Your presentation is a story, so you're gonna let's say tell the story to your audience. And what's important is if you're new in it, yes, you need some more time. However, if you've done the presentation already, then it's easier, because then you don't have to prepare that much, and you don't have to let's say deliver the content or focus on that content, because you already know what you're going to deliver. But keep let's say rehearsing, keep practicing, make it even better, because look back to your old videos that you have that you have or had, or listen to your whatever you have presented, because you can always learn from your past. Now, again, it's really easy. If you're new, just prepare more. Just let's say get your content out there. Focus on your content. When you already know your content and your delivery, just try to improve. Back to you, Andy.
So focus on the content at the beginning and then gradually improve. And I think that's important, that we do need to focus on that. And again, start it early. I know when we're feeling anxious and nervous about speaking in public in a presentation, it's so easy to put it out the back of our mind and not do anything on it until literally we feel forced to do so. Sharon, going to come to you to hear your thoughts on when it comes to rehearsing. Maybe actually, Sharon, how early should we start rehearsing, and how much would you put between the content and the delivery in those rehearsals?
Okay, Andy, so it really depends. I don't think we could say there's a time that is applicable across the board. It really depends. There are lots of variables here. So, excuse me, it depends on the duration of our talk, when it is, and and who the audience is, what our topic is. So there are lots of moving parts here. So it really is individual. Nevertheless, though, I love how you asked the question, Andy, because it goes without saying, really, that practice is imperative, and it's critical and paramount that we do so accordingly. And now when it comes to the delivery, though, that sometimes we can practice certain stances and positions. What I mean by that is if we have a live event, for instance, and we are familiar with the stage or the platform, whether even if it's just an equal platform to the audience, it doesn't matter. We're up front for the most part, right? So we could practice the use of the stage by saying, okay, I will walk over here for emphasis when I speak to this side of the audience, et cetera, et cetera. So some of the movement can be practiced, if you will, or rehearsed. However, though, it needs to still be as natural as possible. So some of these things, when it comes to mechanics, body mechanics, we can't really practice. We have to let it roll and be as authentic and genuine as possible, because that's what people are there for. They're not there for robots at all. Sharon done speaking.
Right, and they're not there for robots. Now, I know when I first started, I did used to rehearse. Apart from all learning every word, back to front, inside out, really understanding, learning the content, understanding it, learning it. But then I actually rehearse every gesture, every movement, everything, even eye glances, which way I'd look, etc. And for me, when I look back, it was like watching a very, very poor amateur play. It was, it's awful the way I did it. I wasn't present. I was too busy focused. So Stefan, as somebody who has done professional plays, not just amateur plays like I was trying to be when I did mine, we'd love to hear your thoughts on when it comes to rehearsing so we can be really present and in the moment.
It's an interesting question because we really run two races at the same time. Because one thing is the next presentation. Oh, okay, we have a presentation on the 13th of August, blah, 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 blah. But we're also running a marathon. So when I look at the next presentation, I focus entirely on the content because I need to know, as Harriet said before, my audience, etc., etc., etc. I don't focus on my delivery style, my language, my body language, etc. at all, because that is the marathon that I'm running parallel. So I'm preparing my content for my next presentation. But to improve my personality, my delivery, my vocal tone, my body language, this is something that I am working on probably until I drop dead. This is the continuous stream. So for me, to limit filler words, to maybe, in my case, learn English better, be more eloquent, be more to the point, maybe use less words. You always remind me that I talk so much. Well, maybe I could condense certain things by being more practical or have more words in my vocabulary, whatever it is. But this is my marathon that I'm running and not the presentation on the 13th of August. So for me, these are two pairs of shoes. The two lanes, one is short, the other one is long. So over time, and that's what we said before, we're all beginners at some point, and we will be all quite good at it at another point in time. I learn what works for me. To come straight back to your question, if I would tell you this is how I do it, it wouldn't do you a service, because you have to find what works for you. For me, it's breathing techniques, it's a vocal warm-up, it's stretching, it's making sure that my tone, my tonality, not just here, but also here, and throughout my body is working. But this is something that has developed over time. And I think that is what people forget. People focus so much on that next date. Yeah, that's important. And that's the content that we're preparing. But we're also running that marathon. And they're just, for me, two different things. I hope that makes sense.
It does. And first of all, I'd say I'm so pleased to see that you are working continually to improve your personality. I was very pleased to hear that.
Oh my God, that was so good. I love that. That was so good.
I think we're all quite pleased to hear that. I love that.
We all win from that. Yes,
exactly. No, thank you for sharing that part. Probably else, Steph, and that's the key takeaway I think for all of us there, to be honest, on that one. So, apart from Steph's personality improvement plan, it is very much right. It is working on both elements. It is definitely a twin approach. I'm going to come to Harriet to bring some sanity into this and her thoughts on, again, what can we do when we're doing it? We're focusing, especially when we're new, maybe we focus on the content, but how do we do the delivery in a way that's natural to you? What do you think would be your tips? It's natural, and like when we're speaking, it's us, right? Not a play, not false, not out of sync. Harriet,
I'm amazed that you came to me for the sanity.
Oh yeah.
I think I'm over with Stefan. I think, to be honest, I'm in agreement with what Stefan was saying there. And I think the delivery is something that really does evolve over time. And this might not be the exact answering your question, but I guess it's my perspective on it. Personally, I don't massively practice delivery. And I think, as Andy shared that amazing open story, can we just send some acknowledgement to him, always leading with love, always leading by example, and sharing his vulnerability in that. For exactly what Andy said is why I don't practice my delivery. Now, that being said, I'll go into how delivery improves. But personally, I feel the more you know your content, you know it inside out, back to front, the more likely you are to deliver it well. When we feel confident and competent with what we're sharing, we're much more likely to show up as ourselves. As Sharon said in Clubhouse, don't get me wrong, there's moments perhaps this is an important part of the speech. I'm going to be in the power circle, front and center of the stage. This is where I want some interaction and I want the room to be open. So I'm going to move back slightly and make sure it's a more open space for people to respond and not feel pressured with me being at the front. So there's certain aspects that you can practice. But I think in terms of, hitting yourself in the face when you're talking or a specific gesture you do, that really is being comfortable in the moment. And the more comfortable you are with your competent, the more likely you are to show up as you. Now, then, how do we improve our delivery? Reflect. I know that whilst I practice my speech and therefore my delivery improves with tonality, etc., I know I show up differently at the live event. So what do? Record yourself speaking, whether it's online or offline. Record and then reflect. And especially at the beginning, I used to watch myself over and over and over again. My poor husband James was like, really? This speech again? But it supported me with going, okay, I spoke too loudly for too long there. It was too intense. I need to calm down slightly here. Or if I brought more tonality, or if I'd left that moment hanging, the audience were eager to respond. So I noticed how I can improve by reflecting upon what I've done. And just one final tip. I think it's always beneficial, especially when you're starting out, to have a coach or a mentor, a friend even, that is with you through your speaker journey. Coach and mentors are much better because they'll give you relevant feedback on how you can improve. But for example, on my live events, I was someone that spoke so quickly. I know it's really hard to imagine. This crazy girl sitting online, she speaks quickly. What? Yes. So I needed someone at the back of the room to go. For those of you that are on Clubhouse and can't see, I'm doing a hand gesture. I'm simply holding a little bit of a teardrop with my hand and then slowly bringing it down to my stomach. My friend used to stand at the back of the room and do that. And what it meant was slow down. So in the middle of my speaking, I was able to improve the delivery of it. So that was quite a long answer, but I think my biggest thought is delivery improves by doing. Know your content inside out, and you're much more likely to show up authentically as yourself to deliver it. Back to you, Andy.
Thank you. I love the little summary up there as well, that delivery improves by doing it. And we do need to do it, right? The more we do it, the more we practice it, the more confident we feel, the more we are speaking, right? Even speaking, doing live, speaking in Clubhouse, etc., things like that. The more we do it, the more confident we feel, the more relaxed we feel. And therefore, that lets our personality come out. So let's finally go to Rob for some tips, maybe on if we are new, if we're nervous, maybe we're a bit worried about the audience we're going to speak to. It could be somebody who means a lot to us, an important client, maybe some managers. What tips could you share, Rob, to help anybody who's going to be giving their presentation to be able to deliver it in a way that comes across as kind of natural to them?
Well, I would just have people look at a meaningful conversation that you recently had with just one other person. It may be a family member, a close friend, a neighbor. That meaningful conversation that you had yesterday, last week, whatever the case may be, probably just wasn't one person. Now, I said meaningful conversation. Probably wasn't one person doing all the talking. It was an exchange from one to another. You were asking a question, they were responding, and you were going back and forth. In steps something called engagement. If we go into any presentation through our preparation and through our practice thinking that we're going to stand up and give a 20-minute or 2-hour lecture, it's going to be one-sided. Go back, reflect on that healthy, meaningful conversation with the one person that was in front of you. And what can you grasp from that? How did you interact? How did they respond? How is it a two-way interactive time? That's what conversation is all about. We want to go into any presentation with it being far more of a healthy conversation as opposed to just a lengthy lecture. That's when real movement takes place, where the audience is receptive, you're engaged, they're engaged, and now all of a sudden, real change comes out of that place. You could do that by, and this is with virtual as well as physical or in-person presentations, the use of physical activities or exercises. You can do it by questions, even rhetorical questions. Storytelling, where the story doesn't become just about you, although it's your story. What does it look like engaging with your audience in the midst of your story? These are just a few things to mention, but nonetheless, we need to remain consistent and committed to one thing in having a meaningful conversation. That is engagement. Back to you, Andy.
And I think the key word there you mentioned several times is it is a conversation. Rather than taking it from the approach, I've got this information, I'm going to tell you about it. It's a conversation with people, getting engaged, just like we do when we're chatting to people. And I think that's a wonderful approach that we should always be thinking of, rather than it's me formal presentation telling you. If we can remember that, I think that it will lead to so much more success.
And Andy, real quick to jump in too on the coattails of you just sharing there, it takes the pressure off of the speaker. Let's be real. Where people, I don't want all the limelight. Now, sometimes you have to embrace the limelight. I get that. But at the end of the day is, what would it look like if the limelight is shared? That's powerful. Anyway, thank you. Back to you.
No, I agree. You're sharing it, and you absolutely right. You don't have to do the talking the whole time, right? You can share it, get people involved, get their feedback and things as well. 100%. I always love doing that. I love it when people interrupt me when I'm speaking, quite frankly, when I'm doing a presentation train. Shows they're invested, they're engaged, they want to add to it. I love that involvement. So no, all for that. Bill, I'll come to you. I know there's something you would like to share from your amazing 200-year experience.
Well, over the weekend, I took a storytelling workshop. I heard that, Andy. Don't think I forgot. I took a storytelling workshop because we as professional speakers continue to train. And I think that's an important message across the board. We didn't cross some finish line X number of years ago and just drink our Gatorade and high-five each other like now we're professional speakers. You need to work on this every week, every day. You really have to think about how you do things. Now, I bring that up because it wasn't an expensive workshop, but it is part of my larger membership to what we call here the National Speakers Association. I'm a member of the New Orleans chapter. but it is a national org in the United States. And it's all about professional speaking. And we get a lot of speakers to speak to us about improving your professional speaking. With that as a backdrop, we had a storytelling expert the other evening who asked for a volunteer. And like typical Bill, I go ahead and volunteer and in advance. And basically they said, why don't you share a quick story with us? And I've told you some. I've touched on the Jack the dog story. So I did tell it. And he very instructively and not terribly, what's the right word? Not terribly with warm embrace, started to critique the story. In other words, this was a real learning, not a real, hey, aren't you great for telling the story? I mean, yeah, there was a little bit of that, but it really got down to then, how do you make it better? And what I learned about, now, Stefan's pretty much an expert at this because of his theater, but the performer in you has to walk in that perfect combination with Rob's engager in you. You have to know when the limelight and the spotlight's on you. And this was what this session was a little bit more about. How do you tell a story and really bring the people in? And I'm not new to storytelling. So again, I want to encourage everyone who's listening or replaying this, whatever, we keep training. And the lessons were, do you know how to do self-dialogue on the stage? Do you know how to let the audience watch you thinking through something in your own personal internal dialogue? Stefan's already nodding his head. These are performance tactics. The freeze moment. Can you come up to a moment and freeze and then explain to the audience or help them understand the frozen moment you had as a thinker? Because they'll remember 25% of what you say, and they'll remember 75% of what they see. So this particular storyteller was really out there to help us. And Stefan, no surprise, he was an actor for a long time. He showed us some of those theatrics on stage. When I say theatrics, I don't mean it in the negative. Oftentimes, I really mean it in the ways to connect. So I'm taking Rob's thing and I'm taking this and I'm linking them and saying there are times when you have to perform in such a way to really let people feel what you're feeling. And then there's time to take that spotlight off you and say, Lawrence, that's a fantastic contribution. Please stand up. Share with what I just heard you say, but the room didn't hear it. And that's how the whole, I'm now the performer. Now I'm stepping back and being the engager. I think this is where our delivery that we're all talking about really meets, and we have to keep practicing it. We are not experts. We're experts on a journey where we never hit the finish line. Andy?
I think we are on a journey. I hope I never get to the end of that journey. It's always looking for new ways to keep growing, keep developing, and ultimately it just leads us to more success. And if we're growing and achieving more success, so can our clients, so can all the people we work with, so can all the people that we are speaking with. So I love that. I'm always looking at new ways. I've looked at a course myself yesterday. I think that's just so important for everyone to do it. I don't think anybody can ever say they are like the finished article. That's a beautiful summary and share. Thank you, Bill. So as we come to the end of today's room, we're going to get a little bit more value. I'll ask a final thought from each of our wonderful panelists here today. I think we go Harriet, then Rob, then Stefan, then Bill. Share a final thought, their takeaway, whatever you fancy. The mic is yours for a moment or two, starting with Harriet.
Oh, whatever you fancy. Are we taking requests? I'll wait for the chat box. Light up. I think I'd like to hone into what Bill just shared. I thought that was fire. 25% of what you say and 75% of what they see is what your audience and listeners will remember. For me, that's a little bit of a summary of our content delivery debate. And therefore, my final tip is know your content, but trust in yourself of how you are delivering that. Just a follow-on quote from Maya Angelou that also sits nicely with what Bill said. People don't always remember what you say, but they do remember how you made them feel. So know your why know your content, and then show up authentically as yourself to share. Over to my wonderful friend, the amazing Rob Holman.
I know. Which way do you point here? What's going on? Andy, thanks for holding this space yet again. And Bill and Stefan, Harriet, as well as Sharon and Movell for the earlier co-hosting. It was just phenomenal time. Learned so much as I normally do. My kind of closing thought is most of what you share in any presentation is going to be captured at the very beginning and the very end. Doesn't mean that the middle and all throughout everything isn't important. Of course, it has high value, no doubt about it. But people remember the beginning and the end. If you're going to hone in on, if you're going to focus more on anything in your presentation or any things within your presentation, weigh in on, focus on, spend time practicing the beginning and the end. Make it memorable. And people won't just forget what you did and how you said it and what you said. They're going to start telling everyone about it. And that's when that content and the delivery of that content spreads like wildfire. So get ready, put it into action, and now off to you, Stefan, because we are parking the kangaroos.
Yeah, look, as I called the middle part, it's the gummy bear effect. Right? You can stretch it, you can push it, it's all wobbly, and you just go with the flow. But yeah, totally agree. If the beginning is lame, people are already switching off. They don't even listen to the rest. If the end is lame, well, you're not landing. You're not even parking your kangaroo. It just runs into the wild. It's terrible. And then, you feel bad for Skippy. I come back to what Bill said before, and Andy was, it's a little bit dangerous to say, oh, just speak for a minute or two or three. And, I come back to what Bill said. On stage, and I'm talking about theater, there's nothing more important than to come across authentic, even though it's pre-written dialogue. Because once it looks like acted, it's unbelievable. And we see the same with speakers. When the moment it looks rehearsed, it's not believable anymore. And what Bill mentioned is a technique that we use all the time on stage. How could I phrase this? You know what? I had an idea. Now the audience is engaged. Of course, you know exactly what you're going to say next, but you invited them into your upper inches. They saw you think, and they now think with you. That is powerful. And there's a ton of these techniques. So funny enough, I believe in 2 weeks, I'll be hosting part of this show that we are running here, exactly on that power presentation, where I'll be sharing such as my mentor said in the theater days, how to manipulate the audience to fall in love with you. Now that sounds a little bit harsh, but these are clear techniques. We've learned techniques how to increase the applause after a performance, which has to do with the step that you take, the timing when you walk, when you look into the audience, when you look into the front row, when you look into the back row, when you stop before you take that extra step to the front of the stage, and it changes everything. Is it manipulation? Yes, it is. But the moment you make it personal, it becomes effective, and then it becomes you. But you're using those techniques now not to manipulate anymore, but to know what you're doing. It's the same, just like a narrator is working with his voice, how a dancer is working with his body. We as speakers have to know these techniques and then make it our own. And I hope I can share a little bit more and some of those little ideas in a future show that we're running. Bill, yours.
He was on mute at the moment, so hopefully.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I back channeled to Stefan. I was listening to every word, but I was trying to actually look at the date that you're going to be doing the session. Do you have it off the top of your head?
Thursday week. 2 weeks time.
Next week or the week? 2 weeks.
2 weeks time.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Andy. Just another great get. It's just so boosting to get booster shots are not only in the arm, they're right here in the brain, and this is my booster shot. I so appreciate what you talk about, Rob. Just another fantastic thing to remember as I talk to groups about the beginning and the ending. You're so right. And Harriet, that quote about how the Maya Angelou quote just is fire every time. They're absolutely right. Audiences are there to come into your brain, Stefan, and as long as you can keep serving your audience with the content that you're going at, you can wrap it in different envelopes, different colors, different tonalities, whatever it takes. With this final exam question, did I leave them better off than they were before they arrived today? And if you've really done that, then you don't know who you've touched. I often tell this very quick story. At the end of a presentation I gave at a conference, I honestly wasn't sure, and here we go again, folks, professional speakers, I wasn't sure if I really nailed it. I kind of felt I nailed it. I did have some engagement, but and a number of people came up. Thank you very much. Great presentation. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you. A couple of business card exchanges. And one gentleman come up and he said this: I really don't know what I came into this session for, because there were 2 other sessions going on simultaneously. And he said, but it seemed okay, so I just thought I would. It was a very low expectation. And he said, however, when you said this particular passage, he said, I will never run my business the same again after I've heard it. You've changed everything. And I'll tell you something, this is why we get on stages, folks. So just keep going. Even the ones that don't feel great, keep going. You just don't know when you've lit that fire. And that's all I want to leave you all with. Andy?
Great way to finish our live today. So big thanks to Bill, Stefan, Rob, Harriet, and who else do we have today? Movell, of course, Erno and Sharon, and everybody who's been with us. We're going to be back live on next Thursday for another session. If you're catching us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or anywhere else, feel free to comment, and we will pick up those comments and reply to you, or even address them next week when we are on live. So until we meet again, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Blessings, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful day.